Okay, so this is my last introduction video I'll do before I get into the JLabs. This will be a relatively short video, but I think it's essential because this video is going to cover debugging in the JCreator IDE and in the Java language in general. Now, you can be a great coder, you can know everything. You can know how to use everything in Java, but if you cannot debug a program, you'll get nowhere because you're going to get a lot of errors that you don't know how to fix. And this is a relatively simple task to do. It's very simple to debug, and people don't realize how powerful it is in Java. That if you learn how to debug, you'll be much better than other people who wouldn't be as well at debugging. So, I'm gonna go back into my Java folder. Okay, into Java, reusable files. Let's get input and template again. Copy these, and we're gonna create just another new folder and call it debugging. Okay, paste the files into here and rename debugging. Okay. Yeah, close. I know. Okay. Again, put in our information. The date is the 6th of the 11th, 2010. This is debugging. Purpose: show you how to debug successfully. Is that even how you spell successfully? I probably put in a bit too many letters, but oh well. Debugging. Okay. So, first of all, let's just enter something wrong. Okay, so let's say a common mistake. So I'm going to use output from the last video. System.out.println. This is a string. Okay? Now, I don't know if anybody noticed what the problem is, but I've left out the semicolon at the end. Now, when we try and go and build this program, we're going to get simply down here semicolon expected. Okay? Resource debugging.java, that's just telling you that the problem is in the debugging file, which is the one we're in. Now, don't worry about folder. The main part you have to really look at is line 10, location. Now, location can sometimes deceive you, and it can tell you a place where the problem actually isn't, but where the compiler's running into the problem. But 9 times out of 10 the location will be right. Now this tells us it's on line 10. Now you can either count the numbers down here along the side, or just double click the line there, and it will actually give you a little red arrow and point you to the line. So it's telling you a semicolon is expected, and add a semicolon. What is this? Add a semicolon at the end. Okay? Now, again, let's try a different one. This time, system.out.println. This is a string. Now this time, again, don't know if anybody noticed the problem, but we put a small s instead of a capital S, and this will give us another error. So we'll compile it. Now this time the description is a little bit harder to understand. It says package system does not exist. Now package is just like the class file pretty much, because system comes with the Java language. The Java docs we downloaded earlier, this is what system comes down with. It comes down with the built-in methods in Java. So package system does not exist. Again, if we double click the line, it shows us where the problem is, and it might take a little bit of brains, but you'll see package system does not exist, and you'll realize you just need a capital S. Build it, and it's working fine. And this will happen for any other error you make. system out dot print line. This is a string. We try to build it. We get cannot find symbol variable system out. This is just simply we left out the dot. So, you know, some of the descriptions of problems can be a tiny bit confusing. Like, obviously the one where it said semicolon expected is a lot easier to understand than cannot find system variable system out. But generally, if you go to the line where you're having the problem and you compare that to other lines in your code that don't have errors, you can generally work out what your problem is. Okay? So debugging is just something you can get used to. You know, every day you will come up against different types of errors. And you know, it's just a way to learn. You know, I know some people who actually benefit from writing down an error when they come to it, and then when they come to a new error they've never come across or an error they don't recognize, they can go back to their little notebook or whatever they've used to write down their errors, and they can either see, is it one they can fix by using a method they used before, or just they have to look it up. You know, Google can be your best friend in some of these. If you are that stuck that you cannot find the answer to your problem, Google the description of the error and generally, you know, you'll get an answer for what your problem is. So, as I said, this is a short video. This is just to explain the basics of debugging. This task list down here, this is your best friend. Okay? Because this will point out to you exactly where your errors are. Now, as I said, sometimes you can get slightly different problems. Like, let me show you one I come across sometimes. System.out.print line. This is a string. Okay? Now this time, oops, all I've forgotten to do is end the quotation mark right here. But as you'll see now when I try to build it, this time I get 3 errors. Okay? The first one, unclosed string literal, which again, a bit of brains will tell you you didn't close the string. In other words, you didn't put a closing quotation mark. Okay, so that's on line 13. Then it says a semicolon is expected. Now, even though we put a semicolon there, because you have not closed the quotation mark, the compiler is taking that quotation mark as part of the string. So it's not picking up that you have a valid semicolon. So you haven't ended that statement you made there. Okay? Now finally, the third one again, reached end of file without parsing. Now just what this means is you've come to the end of the program, which is here, and you haven't used a curly brace. Now obviously we have, but again it's the same problem with the quotation mark, or the semicolon. Because we have not closed the quotation marks, it's not picking up a valid curly brace. It just thinks it's part of the string, and therefore it doesn't see the curly brace. So you know, ones like this can catch you up because it's throwing me out 3 errors. But you know, generally again, if you get more than one error, sort it sequentially down through the list. Start with the first and work to the last, because like as I said here, the first one is telling you you don't have a quotation mark. So instead of trying to fix the other 2, if you fix the first one, which is just a quotation mark, it gets rid of all 3 errors. So you just have to be careful with things like that. Debugging, once you get used to it, is very, very easy, and as I said, it's a very powerful tool. You know, from experience I've seen in college, we even had a test there last week, and some people finished their program and they came up with 40 different errors, you know. And if you're not good at debugging, you're not going to be able to solve those 40 errors, and therefore, you know, you'll fail. If you know, in a test, if you can't even get a program to work, you're fairly fucked as it is. So debugging can be really, really powerful, and it's also a good practice, if you can, to compile your program every couple of lines. I mean, if you compile it every couple of lines and you do have an error, you might only come out with 1 or 2 errors. But if you don't compile it till the very end of the program that you've put many errors in, you'll end up, with 10, 20, maybe 30 errors, and it's a lot harder to debug than a program with just 2 errors. So that's the basics of debugging. Just as I said, this task list down here is your best friend. If there's any errors, it will show you what they are, what line they're on, and it'll try to describe it as best as it can to you. But just use a bit of brain, and if you really can't figure it out, Google it, because Google, as I've learned, has the answer to absolutely everything. Okay, so that's the end of this video, and hopefully, unless I think of something else, which I probably won't, that is the end of the introductory videos. Now after this then, I can start straight into the JLabs. Okay, so until next time.